Welcome back to Confessions of a Catholic Mama. Today's episode is such a special one because I had the joy of sitting down in person with my dear friend Angie, who's local here in our community, and we had the greatest opportunity to share a heartfelt conversation about her journey, from the beginning of her marriage to stepping into motherhood, and how beautiful God's presence had been through it all. Angie shares how meeting her now husband became a moment of deep realization of God's hand in her life, and how that faith continues to shape her marriage and motherhood today. It was really a gift to record this episode in her small in-home studio with her sweet baby girl. It was so beautiful to see, and truly it was a witness of grace, love, and faith in everyday life. So wherever you are, take a moment to relax, grab your morning cup of tea or coffee, and let's take a listen. So I want to introduce everyone to Angie. Angie. I met her once before she got married with her mom in our parish, but then it was very brief.
It was brief, and it was before you got married, too.
We were both single women, and then we kind of got in touch a bit more, sharing motherhood, and that's why we're doing this. So thank you so much. I know you brought baby, so we might see her. I don't know. And yeah, I think for today's episode, we're going to be talking about her. It's her spotlight. She's going to be sharing a lot of moments in your life, very special moments. And yeah, I really appreciate your time, your sacrifice, and yeah, let's get started.
Sounds good.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to know a little bit more about your upbringing. So, a little bit about, if you look back, your childhood, your upbringing in your faith life, or not, the dynamic between how family was, and how that turned slowly into who you are now.
Yeah. So, I was born in Los Angeles. My family, I guess it started there. But I was raised here in Springfield. So we moved here when I was about 2 years old. My dad has always worked in construction, and there was an opportunity here, so he moved with the family. My younger brother was born here, and that's just kind of how we came to become Oregonians, right? But just my whole life, I've been a cradle Catholic. I think it's been instilled in me since the day I was born. Mm-hmm. But, and I'm sure we'll get into it as we speak more, but I think throughout the trajectory of my life, if you will, I think being a cradle Catholic, as great as it is, I think it's also kind of a challenge, because you grow up in the church and the faith, and you do things because you're told that that's the way you do it. But I think for me personally, I never questioned, well, why? Mm-hmm. Or really took the time to understand it. And it wasn't until I became a mother that it became very clear to me how important the faith was and how I wanted to instill that in my own family. That I think now in adulthood is the first time in my life that I've been asking questions and actively trying to learn, and I just feel like it's funny. I look at my son, who's 4 now, him asking me all these questions like, what's this, Mom? And why do we do that? And it's like, I'm very much learning with him in a sense, right?
Wow.
To kind of understand why we do the things we do, or why we believe what we believe. But yeah, from the beginning, I remember there was a time in childhood where we would attend mass twice on the weekends. And I remember as a child, it's so frustrating, right? Because like, Mom, it's the weekend, but I grew up in the church. We sang in the choir. I was an altar server at one point. I was a lector at some point, so really the faith has always been a prominent part of my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, then came college, and I moved away, and I think I had this new sense of freedom, and I distanced myself. Not necessarily from my faith, but from the church. And I think when you think about that, it sounds kind of silly because they go hand in hand, mm-hmm. right? But I never lost, the importance of who God was in my life, and looking to him and making big decisions. And even when I messed up and I knew I was messing up, always turning to him for forgiveness. But again, there was so many mistakes or errors that I made in my 20s that in hindsight, had I stayed connected to the church, I would have been able to avoid all of those things, right? So now in my 30s, kind of looking back and repenting and trying to, make right the things that I did wrong is very much where I am right now.
And it is a process because, a lot of things can happen during childhood, but then if we don't, I mean, it's so true. Like if we aren't told the why aspect of anything, it doesn't have to be just faith. Then we're going to try and figure out like or ask questions or kind of pull away from it a little bit to challenge it on our own. You had, in a way, very faithful in the faith of the Catholic Church childhood, and then you go into adulthood, entering after your teens and all that. And but then what made you choose the career, and whatever that is, you need to tell us. I'm very curious. And what made you choose that? Did you ever have any struggles being first generation student? And how was that for you? How was that process and journey?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I think, yes, I was a first generation college student in my family. I do have an older brother who pursued a higher education afterwards, right?
Okay.
So for me, I was kind of the guinea pig of the family. I didn't know how to navigate or what was out there, what career paths. And, you know, you can select a area of study, but there's a million different jobs you can do within that one area. I didn't know, right? So I think being that it was the first experience, like in conversations with my mom particularly, because I was like, maybe I want to study psychology, and my mom was like, that's great, but like, what about business? And I was like, oh yeah, that's really cool. And I think in high school I always had this like interest in marketing, like commercials, and I just thought they had the coolest jobs in the world, like creating commercials. So that's what really got me into that area of study. So I majored in business administration, but I have an emphasis in marketing. And again, there's just like a million different jobs you can do, but I've I guess kind of been blessed in that way because I was always in that, I've always been in that field of marketing. So not necessarily creating commercials like the creative people, like the super cool people I thought, right? But kind of touching that in a way throughout my career, right? So I moved to Los Angeles to study at Mount St. Mary's University. And it's funny because it's a Catholic university.
Wow.
And it's just so funny how that happened because I wasn't looking for a Catholic school, but it just happened that way, right? And they're not even well known for their business programs. Like they are the nursing school in the country. Like if you want to study nursing, like that's the school you go to. But of course me, like here I am studying business, right? And again, I think being in Los Angeles was just a really blessing experience because there's so many doors for you in that industry, right? There's so many jobs. And part of the requirements of being able to graduate from that school, you had to have an internship. So I got lucky and found an internship with the company that I work for. And then after being there for 3 months, they offered me a job full time. So I remember being in my senior year of college and thinking, I have no idea what I'm going to do, God. Like, I just, please help me because I have no idea. I had fully planned on coming home. And I think I remember I did, like right after graduation, I remember vaguely like my dad and I making the drive back up to Oregon only for like a week or 2 weeks later to be like, Dad, I have to go back. They offered me a full-time job. So that's kind of how it came to be, right?
Yeah.
And I've been so blessed because I remember in high school, people would ask me like, Angie, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I don't know, but I just want to be someone important with a cool job, presenting in like big meetings, and I want to travel for work. And I did. I had the opportunity to travel all over the country, being in meetings with like really important companies and clients. And I remember in one trip to New York, it's like beautiful, it's like snowing and I'm like up in the, I don't know, 13th floor of whatever building. And I had this moment where I was like, God, you made it happen. Like everything I told people that I wanted to do, like, oh my gosh, I did it.
Wow.
We made it, you know? So it was just like a moment. I have like moments where things happen and it's kind of like a checkpoint that I know that God is like with me, you know? This is very deep, but something that has shaped me and who I am is I've always had a sense of, how do I say this? Feeling like I'm not supposed to be here. And I think becoming a mother, it's really helped me understand that that's the craziest thing I could think because God doesn't make mistakes, right? Yeah. But it has. It's unfortunate, something that I felt my entire life, and it's shaped a lot of, who I am and the things I've done. But I remember there's like moments throughout my life where I've had these checkpoints where I'm like, okay, God, maybe I am on the right path, and I think you're with me.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional.
Me too.
Because just thinking about that thought, when you're young, you think, oh yeah, my life might not be worth anything. But then God, like, wait,
Yeah.
there's this things coming for you, and then they need you and they love you, and
Yeah.
they're all your life. Wow.
Yeah.
So when that moment happened, you were like in New York. I can just imagine you're like, wow, I got everything that I've ever thought of.
Yes.
And here I am. Did you ever think of like, okay, I'm done. What's the next step, or continue it?
Yeah, no, I was like, God, what's next? Right? Because I think, and I think it's natural because like we're in college and the goal is to graduate. And when we graduate, the goal is to get a job. So I had checked all the
Yes.
things. And I think it's like ever since you're a student, you kind of have that like checklist. Right?
Yes.
So I got to the end of my checklist and I'm like, what do I do now?
Wow. Same here. Yes.
So I think it was a moment where it's funny because if you met me in like my early college years, I would have told you, I don't want to get married. I'm not cooking for anybody. I'm not cleaning for anybody. I always wanted to be a mother, but in my, ignorance back then, I was like, I'm going to adopt and I'm just going to do it by myself,
That's my story. Yes.
And that's really what I thought. So I think at the time, this
Wow.
is so funny. And I don't even know if my husband knows this story, but my dream car was a Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Okay.
So I was realistically, I was not anywhere financially where I could afford a brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee, but I went for it because in my mind, I was going to adopt. And I needed a bigger car to fit me and my baby.
Oh my goodness.
So that was before I met my husband. It was before I got married, but I was fully planning on adopting, And then lo and behold, we'll get to that, but that didn't happen.
Did you get the car though?
I did get the car.
You got the car. That's great. Yeah, that's so interesting because the same thing. It's like, I don't know if it's something that happened when we were younger. We were about the same age. But in college, I would have never said, oh, I'm going to get married. This is the dress that I know there were friends that would think about that.
Yeah, me neither.
But me, never. So when the time came, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, before meeting your husband now, how was it for you? Because you're living this dream job and you're traveling, and so it's fascinating. Did you, during those moments, did you ever have even time for like love relationships at all?
I did. I think in my 20s there were 2 relationships that really marked like my, I guess romantic life, right? My journey. But I think thinking back on it now and having all these years in between to reflect on it, in the moment, I think with the first, I was just like so struck by him. And I think, again, it goes back to this, I think, theme throughout my life, feeling like I'm not supposed to be here. So he was like the popular guy and every girl wanted to talk to him. And the fact that he was like showing me attention, I was like, oh my God, So I dove head first into quote unquote a relationship because thinking about it now, he was never terrible to me. I think he never led me on. He never, painted this beautiful picture of the relationship we were going to. I think he was very much just in it for, casual fun time. But in my world, I was like, oh my gosh, we're getting married, and of course, when that ended, that fling ended, the reality was extremely heartbreaking. So I think it really marked me. And I don't look back on that time as like something negative. I think it's funny now and funny in a good way, because it's like you think about who you are as a person, and in your early 20s, you're still very much discovering yourself.
Yes.
And thinking back on how I really thought that he was the end all be all, it's like funny now. And he's still connected in our life some way. I don't talk to him on the daily, right? But I see him with his wife and his children, and I think it's so beautiful. And it's, again, those checkpoints with God where it's like, God, this is why that didn't work out, because he is very much with who he needs to be with and the family he's creating. And I think it's beautiful, and I pray for them, and, I wish them a very happy life. Yeah. So that was the first. The second relationship was a little more difficult because I think he was really incredible. And by the time I met him, I think I was kind of changing my mindset on, okay, maybe I do want a marriage. Maybe I do want kids. And I had a really deep love for him, but it never became romantic. And in conversations with God, I would always say, but why? Like, he checks every single box that I never even knew I want. Like, what is wrong with me?
Wow.
Wondering like why I could just never take that next step. And that was really difficult for me to come to terms with, because I just never understood here I have this incredible guy who's like telling me he loves me and wants to marry me. And I'm just like, I just can't get there,
Interesting.
So I felt so much guilt
Yeah.
with that relationship. And I think in a way I might still, because I have realized that I maybe hurt someone and not intended to hurt him. But again, it's someone that, in my prayers at night, when I think of, people from my past that I hurt or, did wrong to, I definitely pray for him and hope that he found a marriage as beautiful as mine,
Yeah.
So those were really the two that marked me. Everything else was kind of a fling. Meeting my husband was just really like you really couldn't have planned it. So again, because I traveled a lot for work, one of these trips took me to Miami for a conference. Hi, baby. Yeah, one of these work trips took me to Miami. And we were kind of, of course, we're in our 20s. We want to go out. We want to see like South Beach, which is the popular tourist attraction. And I remember one of the colleagues that we worked with at the time was like, you need to go to this bar. I think it's called Mangoes or something. So my coworker and I ended up at this bar. We weren't even going to go in. We were tired. We needed to work the next day. And we were waiting for our Uber just in front of this bar because we were planning on walking in. But by the time we got there, we saw the line. We're like, we don't want to do it. So we're waiting for our Uber when a song we really like came on. Cancel the Uber. Let's go inside.
That happens, right?
So we go inside. And it's just like, I think it was just the Holy Spirit guiding us, because you go into the restaurant, and I remember if you go to the right, it's like tables and like dinner service, and to the left, it's like the bar and the dance floor. We wanted to go to the dinner service. And the girl at the front door was telling us, oh, you don't have a reservation, so you can only go on this side. And we're like, okay, well, let's go. We'll grab a beer, and then we'll go back to the hotel, right? So we're kind of squished into the dance floor, and this random guy pops out of nowhere, and he's like, you, come dance with my friend. And I'm like, okay, like we're having fun. And I start dancing with his friend. We make conversation, and at the time, Snapchat was really popular. So, like, I really enjoyed this guy's, energy or whatever you want to call it. He was just really kind and funny, and we switched Snapchats, and I didn't think anything of it, right? So the next day, I'm sitting at the conference, like posting a story about like conference day number 2, and he commented on my story. And he was his comment, he's like, oh, tell your friend I said thank you. And I was like, what? Friend? I thought he was your friend. He's like, no, I don't know. I didn't know him. I thought he was your friend. So all that to say is that this man that I was talking to at the bar on the dance floor was my now husband. But this person who's told me dance with my friend, neither I knew him nor my husband knew him. It was just a random person who told us to speak to each other. So my husband and I talk about that all the time, and we're like, we need to find him and thank him, because had it not been for this random guy at the bar that night, we would have never met, or who knows, right? So
wow.
It's just like when I, again, with these checkpoints with God, when I'm like, God, you knew what you were doing.
Yeah,
right?
no, definitely. That was like just godly presence right there.
Really, really. What's funny about my relationship with my husband is that he was visiting Miami with his friends. They were all living in Mexico City at the time. And of course, I'm not native to Miami because I was only there for a work conference.
Yeah.
So a year went by, he comments on my Snapchat stories. I'll comment on his. Like, we're, kind of chit-chatting, getting to know each other. And he did, I think, at one point express interest. But I was like, it's not going to happen. You live in a different country, like totally different world. It's not going to happen. So here I am, I think, again, because my mind shift has now, shifted to really wanting to pursue like marriage and, settle, some roots. So I was dating at the time, like just dinner here and there, movies here and there, getting to know different people. But for some reason, my mind would always go back to my husband. Oh. And I was like, in my prayers with God, I'm like, why? What is happening? Like, this is insane. It's never going to happen. Like, please remove him, like one of those things.
Wow.
And of course, it just didn't happen that way. So there was an opportunity where I had to travel, and I was able to meet up with him. Like, hey, I'm going to be in the same city. Do you want to, grab some dinner or something? Fully knowing how crazy that sounds, because it's like, yeah, we were kind of commenting, but at the end of the day, he was still a stranger.
Yeah.
We had the most beautiful day together. The
wow.
most beautiful day together. it was like a moment where I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is it. This is the one. And no rhyme or reasoning could, convince me otherwise. So we dove into a relationship. I think both of us were very on the same page. Like, okay, we want to give this a try. Like, we know this sounds crazy.
And you were older, like mature by that time. You're like, we're not going to be like, maybe not.
No,
but like, let's do it.
Let's do it. And mind you, I think I was 24 at the time. My husband is 8 years older than I am. So I think we were both, I think even him so a little more, but we were both kind of like, okay, if we're doing this, like we're exploring something serious.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like wasting time, right? We dated long distance for about 2 or 3 years, I'd say. And then we finally, okay, what are we going to do? Because like, I love you. I want to, have a life with you, but are you coming here or am I going there? What are we going to do?
The big talk.
The big talk. And of course, fast forward to now, of course, he moved here and we have 2 beautiful babies together.
Yes, and so beautiful. Hi. We have a princess here. Such an honor. But, okay, so then you got married. Was it here or in Mexico?
We got married in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
We did, because his family doesn't have, the opportunity to travel visas. So we did. We had a civil ceremony in Mexico.
Okay.
And it took us a while, if I'm honest, to get married in the church. It did take us a while to get there. So I think about it now, and I'm like, again, I'm at a stage in my life where I have to look at everything through a very spiritual lens, because I think at the end of the day, like there is not a wind that blows if it's not God commanding it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think I am very clear on that right now. So when I think about even the differences in my pregnancy, the difference in my marriage, pre getting married in the church versus after, it's completely different.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And that would be an extension too, because that's a huge other topic that I would love to delve into, because graces, when you have the sacrament of matrimony within the Catholic Church, so many things. And I didn't believe it until it happened. But so you get married, you're in Mexico City, and then you guys move fast to California?
To Los Angeles, because I was still in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So it took us a couple months. I think we got married in March, and it wasn't until August that he ended up moving because of the permissions and the paperwork and all of that.
Okay.
And of course, he was kind of like putting his notice in at his job and getting rid of things, like he made a very big shift to come and create this life with me. But, you touched on it a little bit, speaking of graces, right? It was really difficult for my husband, and understandably, because he left everything he knew behind. He was in his mid-30s by now, like a whole lifetime that he never planned on leaving. All of a sudden has uprooted, and changed. So we went through really difficult first years of marriage, because it was right around the time when he moved to Los Angeles. His nephew was diagnosed with cancer, and then COVID happened. Unfortunately, we lost my father-in-law to COVID. So you can imagine all these things, like the turmoil and heartbreak that he was going through, and having to be far away, because of course his permission to travel was not approved yet, so he couldn't be there for the funeral for his own father, which is really difficult, So there were these instances that we faced very early on in our marriage that we all know, sooner or later we're going to have to deal with. But the fact that we were faced with it so early on was incredibly challenging for us.
Yeah.
I tell friends who are newlyweds or barely engaged, I'm like, don't fall into the trap in thinking that it's going to be a honeymoon phase, because the first year of marriage is really difficult.
They always say that. It's true.
And it's like, let's be honest, like it's not all rainbows and sunshine. And you have to have 2 people who are truly committed to one another to really be able to get through, these bigger challenges that life throws at you.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I cannot even imagine like going all through that. Now, how long was it until he was able to travel, and did he go?
So let's see. My father-in-law passed away January of 2021. He was finally able to travel. I want to say it was around May of that year.
Okay.
So I think it was also very cathartic for him and his family to be able to be together finally after this really traumatic event. Yeah. I remember talking to my mom, And I was like, oh, he finally got his green card. Like, I just want to be able to do it. My mom's like, buy him a ticket, surprise him, you know? And in my mind, I'm like, why didn't I think of that? You're right, Mom. So he was so nervous to leave me because I was pregnant. It's our first baby. He didn't want to go. It's still the pandemic.
How many months pregnant were you?
I got pregnant in January of that year.
Okay.
So I was like 5 months pregnant.
Okay.
Yeah, but he was nervous about it. But I think it was just a really good moment for them to be able to share as a family.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking back on it, I'm really glad that we were able to do that.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. It's so important for him. And so, but how was it when that little moment? Because you guys are freshly married, you're pregnant, and then he goes. So
yeah, it was fine. I think, I mean, obviously, like, you know, right? We're moms. So I think at 5 months pregnant, like, you really don't need support yet, right?
No,
like,
not yet.
No, not yet. But it was fine. I think he was
Did you
gone
miss
for a
him
week.
though?
I did. Oh my gosh, yes. That's the funny thing. I think it was so funny to me because when I met my in-laws, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, they were always together. Whether it was watching TV or going upstairs to like relax or going, you know, they were always just next to each other. And it's funny because my family dynamic was so different. We were all very independent. My mom was doing her, and it's different cultures, right?
Yeah,
like in Mexico,
that's
you know,
true.
the mother is a homemaker, and you know, here it's not generally the same thing. Like mothers go to work, some mothers stay home, and all families are beautiful, right? But it was just very different for me to see. So at first, it's like, you know, again, when you get married, you're bringing two completely different people together and trying to find a balance that works for you.
Yes.
I laugh about it now, but in the moment it was so difficult. But I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go on the couch and watch TV now, and my husband would be like, I'd come with you, and I'd be like, why? You know, like, no, it's okay, you can stay here, like, you don't have to follow me. But for him, it's what he saw growing up, so it was so natural to him to like, no, husband and wives do things together. Whereas in my experience, it was like, we don't always have to be together.
Yeah.
Fast forward to now, because of the pandemic or, you know, just things that have happened in recent years, my husband and I both work from home. We're together 24/7. And when we're not, I miss him so much.
Yes.
You know, and I think it started back then because even now, if you ask me, like, I'm like, no, but can my husband come? Like, I want to spend time with him too, you know?
Yeah,
So.
of course. Yeah, well, for me, so different because 5 years of dating, so long distance. And so then, of course, when we got together, we didn't want to be separable at all. And we actually wanted to be alone. So we lived far away because I was working in Salem in Oregon. So it's like a little bit far away from here. And so then I moved to another small town that God gave us that apartment. But when he had to go to a mission the first time ever, I was like, oh, I miss him. And I never thought that would happen. But I'm like, oh my goodness.
I know. Like, who am I?
Yes. But okay, so this happens, and baby boy is born in October.
In October.
Yes.
My pregnancy with my son was just very, I don't even have a word to describe it, but if we can rewind a little, I got pregnant in January, which is the same month that my father-in-law passed away. And getting pregnant with Sebastian was easy. Like, my brother had just had a baby, and immediately the baby fever. I was like, I need to have a baby, you know? We got pregnant on the first try, which is like really crazy to think about, you know? I think we were okay, let's try, you know? So I think about that now because, I don't know, you know, you feel guilt sometimes, and I'm like, maybe if I had taken the pregnancy test, my father-in-law would have known that we were pregnant, you know? And it just didn't happen that way. So I think I have to tell myself, like, no, he's in heaven and he knows that he has a grandson. You know what I mean? Like, I have to so I think I have those thoughts sometimes. If my father-in-law knew, right, that we were having a baby, he'd be so happy. Maybe it would have motivated him to like fight harder, you know, but you know, it is what it is, and I think we make peace with that. I'm of the idea that when God calls you home, it's just time to go home, you know? So it's something I tell my husband because I'm like, I know that he's in heaven and he's happy, you know?
Yes.
That we have, well, now two, right? But at the time, Sebastian. But My pregnancy, again, I keep going back to this theme of like speaking of graces, right? My pregnancy with Sebastian was very difficult. So like every check-in, you have your ultrasounds and your check-ins. He was deemed a high-risk pregnancy from the beginning. My placenta was not producing enough protein to help him grow. And it's just so crazy. Like I don't fault the doctors or the nurses in any way, but from the beginning it was like, oh, you have a high chance of losing the pregnancy. Oh, don't get your hopes up because this baby might not make it to term. Like these are the things I was hearing. So funny enough, to your question about that week that he was in Mexico, I received a phone call about oh, we're going to have to do extra testing because your baby might have Down syndrome. And this is a point where women choose to terminate the pregnancy. Should you choose to do that, we can do extra testing, blah, blah, blah. And Marco was in Mexico when I received this phone call. So I remember crying, and I called one of my friends, and she's like, no, we are calling the nurse, and I'm gonna I'm advocating for you because my friend works in the healthcare space. So I remember her being on the phone, and I'm like crying, and like we're three-way calling because she lives in another city, but God bless her because she kind of held my hand through that, right?
Yeah.
I am an extremely emotional person. So my husband is very rational and like, it's okay. They're just giving you news. Like, we don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah.
And I remember having a conversation with my dad, and he's like, Mija, if the baby is born with anything, like, we're going to love him no matter what.
Oh.
And immediately I knew, right? Because, I'm not terminating my pregnancy. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted this baby, and however this baby comes, I'm going to love this baby, know? But it's a scary thing to hear because you don't plan for that, like you never think about like, and I think more in the future, like who's going to take care of my baby when I'm no longer here, especially if he can't, advocate for himself. Like those were all the thoughts that I'm sitting with, especially being pregnant and hormonal. Like you can just
And
imagine.
we're human.
Yeah. So the whole pregnancy was like that though, because every appointment was something negative. And I remember one ultrasound, it's like, oh, he has a heart defect and he might not make it past birth. So it's like everything was just, I think at one point, I'm going to be really vulnerable here, but growing up Catholic, I don't think I really felt, how do I say this, like a connection to our mother until I became a mother. So I knew, Mary was someone to be respected. I knew, what I mean? Like I always knew that, but I never felt that tie with her. So I remember in a moment, one of these appointments where I received bad news, I was like, Madrecita, please just take care of my baby. Just let me meet and I'm getting emotional, just let me meet my baby. And I am so blessed because my husband being from Mexico City, we're really near
Yes.
And I told her, I promise you when he's born, I'm going to take him to you. I will take him to you. And, here we are, I remember I did make that trip. The first time we went to Mexico, I was like, I don't care what we need to do. I don't care what plans we have. We're going,
Wow.
And, my husband, I love him so much, but he's not Catholic. So that's something that, is different for us, but he is so supportive of my journey and my faith and the fact that I want to raise our children in the faith, so of course he follows me on all my crazy adventures. But yeah, so it's just, I think with Sebastian, it was really difficult, and I don't know, I don't have an explanation for it, right? Because I don't want to get ahead of myself, but if we're going to talk about birth, I can share with you how difficult that was.
Yes,
too.
everything.
But he was so funny. He's so funny. He's just the most beautiful light in this world. But I tell people Sebastian is very stubborn, and what Sebastian wants is what Sebastian is going to get.
Yeah.
So, but that happened from the beginning, because when a baby implants in the womb, what was explained to me is that generally a baby implants in the back of your womb. Sebastian implanted in the front. So from the very beginning, he's like, I'm doing this my way.
Wow.
And he was breech. So his head was up by my ribs.
Oh.
And no matter how hard we tried, he just would not turn and get into position, for a natural birth. So it came to the tail end of the pregnancy, and the doctor said, if he doesn't turn, we're going to have a C-section, because he was big. He was very big. and there was concern about his umbilical cord getting wrapped around his neck.
Yeah.
And immediately I'm like, I don't even want to risk it. Do the C-section. I don't even want to, you know what I mean? So we scheduled the C-section, and I remember waking up that day, I felt so at peace. I wasn't nervous, and I know because I had seen videos of like what a C-section is, I wasn't concerned. I just went in, and I remember the woman, because again, it's COVID at the time, so there was like a lot of, you had to do a lot of like temperature checks before you even walked into the hospital. The woman outside was like, how are you so calm? And I'm like, it's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. We're, getting prepped, and, they have to do all these tests before you can even go in the operating room. And we get into the operating room, and it just so happens that in a C-section, they have to numb you. So they give you a spinal to numb you from the waist down, essentially, so that you don't feel when they're cutting you open and all that. It didn't work for me. So, so they were poking around, and I'm like, that really hurts. And they're like, it really? And I'm like, yeah, that hurts a lot. And they're like, okay, bad news, like I can't give you more because it could, paralyze your lungs, and that's not good. So they had to put me completely under. So my birth story with Sebastian is difficult, because I wasn't even awake or aware when my son was born. I didn't hear his first cry. I didn't get to hold him on my chest immediately after he was born. I felt very robbed of that moment. Opportunity, that moment. And at the same time, I'm feeling so thankful because my husband was there. You know what I mean? So like I couldn't hold him, but at least he knew the love of his father who was there, But in coming out of my C-section, because they had to put me completely under, I don't think I had ever been put under before. So the experience of coming out of that anesthesia, it's just so complicated because I wasn't fully aware of everything that was going on. And at the same time, they're handing me this little baby. And I don't think I'm fully registering, you know what I mean? Like I'm a mother now, right? Because I'm like still trying to process, like, okay, I'm awake, what just happened? And I have this photo that I think about a lot, and like, because I had to be completely put under, I think they had to put more wires and all kinds of things in me, but it seems so foreign now. Marco took this photo of the first time that I held Sebastian, and I have him in my arms, and it's so awkward the way I'm positioned holding him, because I think back to that moment, and I don't even remember being in that moment. Yeah. Because of everything that happened.
Do you remember how many hours it was until you woke up?
It was quick. I know it wasn't long.
Okay.
I can't say hours for sure, but Sebastian was born at 11:55, and then in the trajectory of what happened throughout the day was just very long because, of course, after a C-section, they take you back to the recovery room to make sure that everything's, okay. They want to make sure that the spinal wears off and you can feel your toes. We did all those things, but in the process of them taking me from the recovery room to my room, the room where we were going to be for the 2 days, I was hemorrhaging. A lot, like soaking through these things to the point where the nurse was like really concerned. So it all happened so fast, right? Because again, I don't even remember holding Sebastian. I remember holding him. I remember holding him on my chest as we walked back to our room, or like, they wheeled us back to our room. Yeah. But all of a sudden, like I'm bleeding, and all of a sudden she's calling in more nurses. And before you know it, there's like 7 people in the room, and they're telling Marco, like, no, you need to move to the side. We need you out of the way. Everyone's yelling. I have people pushing on my belly. Without getting too graphic, I have people like checking me from inside. It was just, and like people are yelling and screaming, and we need to get the operating room ready again. You know what I mean? I had to sign this document because what the nurse was explaining is that I had like golf-sized blood clots. Still, Oh. We don't know why. Yeah. We don't know how, but I think I remember vividly like looking up at the ceiling because they're like injecting me with all kinds of IVs at this point, and I see my husband and he's looking really nervous in the corner. They ended up taking Sebastian to the NICU because they're like, you can't even focus on the baby because you're worried about your wife, so we're taking him to the NICU. Yeah. And I remember looking up at the ceiling and thinking, God, please not right now. Yeah. Getting emotional. God, please not now. I need to know who this baby is.
Oh.
I need to be here for this baby, you know? And what a humbling moment, because I had spent my whole life telling people, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm not afraid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, yes, I am, you know? Because I realize now that there is someone more important than me.
Yes. Oh. Mm-hmm.
Thank God, you know, we were able to go back into the operating room. They were able to clear out everything, you know, that was kind of affecting, you know, the hemorrhaging. But you're very talkative.
She wants to tell us that she's very happy to hear this story too.
The recovery of that was really difficult. And it makes me sad to think about, because I remember the moments that I spent during my maternity leave with my son. I do. Mm-hmm. But it's clouded because I was really sad for a lot of it. And I didn't know then that I was experiencing postpartum depression.
Yeah.
And I was never brave enough to ask anyone. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, in my mind, I was like, no, I'm crazy. Mm-hmm. That's not what this is. Mm-hmm. But I would spend days at a time crying, grieving the fact that my birth was nothing compared to how I imagined it would be. I think my body was going through this recovery of losing so much blood because I was iron deficient when I got home. So even that, I think, really impacted how well I recovered from that C-section. I obviously, having my son, I would live that experience a million times over if it meant having my son. I would never go back and, you know, not do it, because the gift that I got out of it was worth that and so much more.
And he's tall and strong and very funny.
Beautiful, yes. But it's just sad, you know. I think as mothers are just in general, and I don't mean to scare anyone. But I think you always hear, oh, the baby was born and mom and baby are doing well. But there's so much you don't know.
Oh, yes.
So, like, that is just, you know, there is so much you don't know. And I think the more I speak to mothers, the more I realize we don't talk about this enough.
No, we don't.
So women go into these, you know, birthing experiences and come out on the other side, like, traumatized because nobody told them. Yes. And I think it's because we don't want to scare anyone, but it's like, no, out of a place of love, just, it's okay. Out of a place of love, it's okay if it doesn't happen the way you envisioned it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you any less of a mother. It doesn't mean you failed, you know? And these are things that I think I needed to hear at the time, and I didn't.
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Oh, yes, I know. No, that's why I was inspired. So when I was pregnant with my second born, I had all these ideas and things because I didn't know, but I did have the postpartum depression as well. Mm-hmm. But it was because, and I shared it in the episode about my postpartum story, is that people all around me, and it's culturally what they knew about, but I would always just hear, postpartum depression is when you don't want the baby, or like you don't want nothing to do with the baby. And I'm like, oh, no, like that's not me then, because I love my baby. But sadness, there was a lot of crying. I mean, I did go through a breastfeeding like journey that I haven't really shared a lot of, but that put me in a deep hole. And at the same time, now I can talk about it, but I had to go through healing with Mama Mary, because we get connected even more with Our Lady during these times, because she understood. She understands everything we go through. Yes. And yes, we didn't hear it, but at the same time, I feel like we also grow so much, and we're able to, okay, now that we went through it, we know that if God guides us, we can also help others by telling our story. And that's why I'm doing this too, because it's true. Like, we don't want to scare any newly engaged or single discerning women that want to go into this vocation that is beautiful. But at the same time, being aware that, I mean, sacrifice is in everything, like in our vocation, and the grace comes in. Yeah, we're not alone. Like, the graces come, and we have saintly mothers too that at some point they decided the life of the child and not theirs. Mm-hmm. And so so how was that process after going through all of that? Did it take some time? Do you think a year or 2 years for you to fully be like, okay, I feel like myself now a little bit?
It was a long time. It was a long time because I experienced a lot of that sadness early on. But then afterwards, like, of course, it takes your body a long time to heal. It's not the 6 weeks that they tell you,
No.
right? But even after my body had healed and I was able to move around on my own, I had so much anxiety. So I remember my husband, like telling me, "Oh, I'm just going to use the restroom really quick." And I would like feel panic. Like, what do you mean? What if he cries? What am I going to do? You know, which is silly because I always knew what to do. Like as a mother, you're, they say that when the baby's born, the mother is born, right? Like
Yes.
you have that instinct, but just hearing like, oh my gosh, you're going to leave me alone with him. Like, what if I can't figure it out?
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of that anxiety that I was kind of suffering with too, like feeling because of everything that happened, feeling that I wasn't worthy or prepared or whatever, it may be. I think it was when my son turned 3 that I remember it was the first time I had ever gone to the store with him by myself. Because before that, I would always call my mom, or if my husband couldn't go, or I would call my younger brother and, hey, can you come with us?
Yeah.
So when he was 3, I finally got the courage to take him to the store by myself. And I was like, I did it. And it was not scary, and he was so good. And ever since then, like, whenever I have to do something, like he's my little go-to, shopping
Yeah.
buddy. But it took 3 years,
Wow.
right? Which is kind of crazy.
And still, like, there could be more growth in it, like, no matter.
Absolutely.
Well, now that you're saying that, it's so true because I depended, and I said like 120% on my husband, because it took me a while, and I was so anxious. So yeah, anxiety levels were all the way on the top, but I didn't know it then. I was like, no, I'm not an anxious person. What are you talking about? But yeah, it's so true. And then when he went out for a mission, or when he had to come here, because we lived in Corvallis, so when we had to come here to Eugene, and it's an hour away, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I didn't want to show it because I always try to show a brave face.
Like, I know what I'm
I'm
doing.
like, go, it's fine. You need to serve the Lord, go. And then I was just like, how do I go to the bathroom? Like, how am I going to leave? He was an infant. And I'm like, and I remember I texted this great role model for me. Like, she's a mama of 5. And I'm like, what did you do? ¿Cómo es esto? And then I remember she said, the same thing happened to me. I was also alone. And I remember I just took the crib or whatever it was, bassinet, whatever. And like to the bathroom. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, how do you shower? And so I couldn't do a lot of things, but I was forced to in the beginning. And so, but the first time that I had to stay alone with my second-born and the firstborn, with both, one baby and one that's barely, not even 2 yet, and that was hard because I was just like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get them to the car if we need to go to the doctor's appointment? And so the first time I remember doing it, I did it. Like, I just worked it out. I mean, naturally, because I worked in a classroom, so I'm like strategically thinking, okay, I do this, I do that. And then I did it. And then in the end of the day, when I met my husband, and I'm like, hey, so I did it. And you feel this accomplishment, like, whoa.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is so true. I'm glad you brought that up. But now, after 3 years, now he's 4, and then baby number 2.
Yes. I wanted baby number 2, I think, fairly quickly, and my husband was very much like, no, I just want, like, let's enjoy Sebastian. Let's really enjoy him, right? So we did. Now my experience getting pregnant with Sophia was completely different. It was not happening. And of course, coming from my son, I tried to not, give myself like a false sense of hope because I knew we were really lucky getting pregnant on the first try with him. But of course, being human, I was like, why is it taking so long? Like, God, I remember crying in the shower one day because I was like, what if it's not in your plans? And why? Like,
did you ever think that you wouldn't have?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I got to a moment because it was a few months, right? Where I got to a moment and I was just like angry at God, which is really silly, but like I'm human and I'm not perfect. And I just remember telling him, like, why would you put this in my heart if you weren't going to help me see it through? It's just like a very human emotion, you know, but it just took a really long time. And I think obviously all in his perfect timing because we have a beautiful baby girl, you know, but I think there's something to be said about, you know, faith in the waiting, which is something I am very much struggling with still. But that was a very clear example of that, you know. And I just remember people people would ask, like, when's the next one? When's the next one? And I'd be like, oh, soon. But in my mind, I was like, it's not happening, you know?
Yeah.
Of course, it's like you always hear, like, you can't ask people if they're pregnant. You can't ask them if they're trying because you just don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And of course, I'm not going to like spill out my whole life story to someone asking. But how hurtful is it, right? Not that they mean to, but like how hurtful is it to be like, oh, soon, you know? But like to know the reality is that it's just not happening. So I think there came a time where I was like telling my husband, I'm like, okay, like I just have to start telling myself, like, if we don't have another one, like I just have to be really thankful that God gave us one incredible little boy, because there's women who like long to be mothers and don't have that, you know, for some reason. So I recognized how, you know, lucky I was just in having my son, you know, but it was so funny with Sophia because I think we got to a point where we weren't really trying consistently because I was just getting tired of seeing the negative, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember we were on a trip to Mexico last year and I was really stressed out. Like my mother was going to have a procedure done. Work was kind of stressful. Traveling just stresses me out a lot, you know, whatever. And I, you know, I don't want to be too graphic, but I'm pretty regular, you know, in terms of my monthly cycle. Okay. And it just wasn't happening. And I told my husband, like, I think it's just I'm stressed. Like, I know enough now to know that when I'm stressed, it kind of throws me off. Yeah. And he's like, well, why don't you just take a tat, like, and see? So we're in Mexico and I sent him to the pharmacy and I'm like, do not show your mom. Do not show your sisters. Like, I don't want to get anyone excited. I don't even want to get excited. I'm going to take it. Just like, let's just see. So I take one and it's negative and I'm like, okay, for sure it's going to show up tomorrow, you know? Of course it doesn't come. Another day passes, doesn't come. He's like, there was 2 in the box. Just take the other one. So this was like 3 or 4 days later. I take the second one.
He's the one nudging. Your husband's the one nudging you to do it.
My husband. And it's funny. You're going to think this is so cool. But he's like pushing me to do this. And I'm like, it's still negative. And we're in Mexico and I think this was maybe like a day or 2 before we were set to come home. And his sister, one of his sisters who I'm very close with, he's like, are you pregnant? I'm like, no, I'm not pregnant. Like, I'm just like moody, you know what I mean? Like whatever. But of course I had taken the 2 tests by then and they were both negative. Yeah. So I was like, okay, it didn't happen this month. You know what I mean? Like we'll try again later. So it was so funny because we're on our way home and we had a layover somewhere in Mexico and they had a play structure in this airport. So my son was playing in the play structure and I was standing kind of outside of it. There's like a little gate and I was like leaning over and my husband comes up behind me and he gave me a kiss on the cheek. He's like, oh, para mi princesa or something like that. And then he rubs my belly and he's like, para mi princesita. And I'm like, you're so silly. Get out of here. Like, you're crazy. You know what I mean?
You're thinking he's just joking.
I'm like, you just saw these 2 negative pregnancy tests, you know? But he was so very much like, no, vas a ver. So we get home. I went to go see my mom because she had just come out of the procedure she had. And I'm telling my husband, like, what is going on? Like, I'm getting worried now because I've never missed one. Yeah. So the fact that it's like this late, like something's going on, you know, he's like, just go to Walgreens. And I'm like, okay, I've taken like 4 at this point. Like, I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? Yeah. He's like, just go to Walgreens, you know, like, just see what happens. So,
wow. His faith, man.
He's not Catholic, okay? But I stopped by Walgreens on the way home after seeing my mom. And at this point, I'm just kind of like, I don't even care. Like, there it is, you know, whatever. But he's like, just take it. And I'm like, I'm going to take it, but it's going to be negative, you know? So I come out of the bathroom and I'm like, here, I already know what it's going to say. Like, here, just say. So we're sitting on the couch. And he's like, you know, checking it because it takes a while before like it loads and like gives you the response. And at this point, I'm like munching on my popcorn, trying to find what I'm watching on TV because I am convinced that there is no possibility. And he's like, oh, it's done. And I'm like, of course, in my heart, that like flicker of hope, I'm like, I'm hoping it says positive, but in my mind, I know it's going to say negative because I've taken all these tests already.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, it's negative. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. Like, we'll try again next month. And then he like looks at me and he's like, I'm just kidding. It's positive.
And you were leaping with joy, I'm sure.
I didn't believe him. I was like, no, it's not. No, it's not. You know, I'm like, mentiroso, you're a liar. And he showed it to me. And I just remember like we hugged and we're like laughing because it's like such a fun, beautiful moment.
Oh.
And people find it so funny that my husband knew I was pregnant before I did.
It happens. Husbands know.
I know. It was
The good ones know their wives.
So it was just like a really beautiful moment where I'm just like, I cannot believe it, you know, after all these negative tests. And like, sure enough, she was just hiding, I guess.
Wow.
But what a beautiful, beautiful moment. You know what I mean? And I think obviously the first thing I did when I found out I was pregnant with my son was say, thank you, God.
Yeah.
The first thing I did with my daughter, thank you, God. You know what I mean? Like,
Hi.
and sorry for, for being angry at you a couple months ago, you know?
Yeah.
It was such a beautiful moment. I tell my husband, like, I think you'll relate to this, but like being a mother is such a spiritual experience. You know your babies from the minute they're in the womb. Like, you know them. I knew Sebastian was going to be this outgoing, spunky, stubborn. I knew it.
Oh, yes.
Because I just felt it. You know? And with Sophia, I would always tell him, I'm like, she's going to be like more reserved. Because I didn't know. Like, she wasn't telling me. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't even dreaming about her, you know?
Yeah.
So she's a little more reserved. And sure enough, like, you know, you have your kids and you see how different they are. And it's like already I see her personality like starting to shine through. She's 5 months now. But even so, like just her deep personality, like I'm starting to see glimpses of it. So it's like just funny how like your babies tell you, this is who I am, you know?
Yeah, no, my second one as well. With both of them, I didn't know until months later, like down when I was already pregnant. But once I get hit with the symptoms, like it was really bad.
Oh, wow.
For me, it was bad. I had horrific times. But with the girl, my baby girl, she's 1 now. Same thing. She didn't let me know. And then the whole kicking. I know there's the counting that you do.
Yeah.
I never do that because my mind doesn't work that way. And I'm like, well, she is kicking at some point, but she didn't really do a lot of the kicking than he did. But it also depends on your body, I've heard. I don't know. But she didn't really do that. And so then when she was born, she was just like not even crying a lot or wanting to be like, she was just like, ah. And she fell asleep.
Yeah.
And then she's been a great sleeper. There are days, but she's a great sleeper compared to my first one. My first one, I already knew, oh, this one's going to be like me. And so, but yeah, that's wonderful. I really thank you for everything you've shared. The last thing before we go, just what do you feel in your heart? Any advice to mamas or newly engaged or newlywed women that might go through all these struggles too, like the whole waiting, because when you found out finally, it's like, whoo, a lot of celebration.
I know.
But it's hard to wait.
It's hard to wait. I think, you know, I'm giving this advice fully knowing that I am a very flawed human, you know, and almost hypocritical in a sense because I was also frustrated and angry, you know. But if there's one thing I can just say without a shadow of a doubt, is that God doesn't make mistakes, you know, in his perfect timing, whether it's meant to be or not meant to be. And there are other aspects of my life where I have not received a yes. My children were a yes, thank God. But there's so many aspects where it's been a no. Yeah. And I think I've just have to come to make peace with the fact that God in his perfect, you know, ways is protecting me from something, or that's not where he needs me. You know, I think, again, I go back to this theme of feeling like I'm not supposed to be here. I am supposed to be here. Yeah. You know, and it's taken a long time, many years of therapy to kind of come to terms with that. But God protects you from things that you're not meant to do, paths that you're not meant to follow. Like I touched on that relationship early on that I look at him now and I'm like, no wonder it didn't work out.
Yeah.
He is exactly where he needs to be. And I am exactly where I need to be. And thank you, God, for letting that be a no.
Yes.
And it might take years to see that answer. And you might not even see it on this side, but I think it's just standing firm in your faith and knowing that God would never put you in a situation that's meant to hurt you, I can't remember. I was recently reading the book of Genesis, and at the very end, there's a scripture that speaks about what you meant for harm, God turned to good. So I always go back to that when I'm feeling kind of frustrated and I'm put in positions where I'm scared, or I just have to remind myself, like, okay, God is going to turn anything in my life to good, whatever it may be, the biggest heartbreak, whatever it is. I know that He's going to turn it to good. I think another part of that is like we are so blessed in this life to form connections with people. I think of my friends who I like really had to lean on at the time.
Yeah.
My son's godmother, who's been there for me through the highs and lows. She has literally seen me at my worst and not afraid in that friendship. And I prayed for a friendship like that. So I'm really thankful to see that. I think of you and the friendship that we're forming and the fact that I can turn to you as a mama who also has a spiritual background. And like, we can talk about those things because I don't think it's a mistake that we met. And I talk to my husband a lot, about how thankful I am for you and how much of a support you were when Sophia was born. And even beyond that, I just think we really need to start praying about the people who God surrounds us with.
Yes.
Because it's so important. I think people serve a purpose in your life, whether it's, just in passing or people who stay with you.
Yeah.
But whatever it may be, however long they are, just pray that it's people who, fill your cup and are there to support you because, God being in heaven sends us these people to take care of us here on earth. Yes. So that's my advice. You know what I mean? Like stand firm in your faith and know that God is never going to abandon you, but look for the people to surround yourself with who can really kind of help support you when you feel like you're falling.
Yes.
Because you need that too.
Yeah, no, I remember with my firstborn, we lived a little bit far, and so we didn't have anyone. We were alone. We chose that. But looking back, it's like, okay, a lot of people did offer help, but we're like, no, we're okay. I guess a lot of it is also like embarrassment or I don't want them to see me. Yeah. But yeah, no, now I've grown to like have a few people, like older women that I'm like, I need your help. Can you help me with this? And they come and they've shown that. But yeah, it's like that circles, it's becoming, because sometimes it's 0, but then it's like 1 or 2, and it's really helpful. But it's so interesting that you talk about that, because I always talk about the support system. Like, did you have a support system? Because sometimes we feel like, yes, we do, but then where is it? Or no, it's non-existent. Either by choice or by just not having it, right? Yeah. And it's so funny because I spoke to my husband when my firstborn, during the time when we were going through everything. We were zombies because we were both doing everything. And the meals, and it was just navigating through it all. But I was telling him, I wish, maybe there is, but I wish there was like a foundation where we get all of these grandmas, because I know there's older women that crave to be with young babies and to take care of a woman that just barely delivered. And I know in other countries they do that. Yeah. I guess in other countries I was reading that like the either the in-law or the mom comes and lives with the daughter or the woman that had the baby, and so then they take care of everything, like the washing, the clothing, like the dishes, and then everything, every aspect, so she can just connect with the baby. Yeah. And I'm like, we don't have that. Like, I don't see it in the U.S. I feel like the first thing they say, okay, get ready so your body is ready to go to work. That's the first thing they do. And so I know there's people advocating, so like there's more of that maternity leave. And I think in this state, there's also a paternity leave, which is good. But yeah, to make it up to a year, not just the whatever weeks it is. Yeah. But yeah, no, thank you, Angie. I think this conversation was very fruitful, and it's going to help a lot of mamas out there, or single women that are discerning for this beautiful vocation, because it's beautiful.
I cannot stress that enough. It's so beautiful. I would go through all of it a million times. There is not a day that I regret. I was sharing with Catherine before we started how I got 1 hour of sleep last night, but I would not trade it for the world. Like, these babies are the most incredible gift that I know I'm not worthy of, but for some reason God saw grace in me, and I will never be able to thank him enough. So if you're, praying on this, thinking about it, just know that what comes on the other side is just beautiful all around.
Yes. And thank you, everyone. Leave any comments, reviews, subscribe, whichever platform you're in. This video is going to be on YouTube first. And Angie, is there any way that you would like to, maybe some followers want to connect or message you or ask a question? Is there any, do you want me to have some sort of like an email or something on the
I'm
notes?
happy to share my email. I am happy to connect with other moms, like you said, other single women who are discerning, this journey. Please reach out. I'm an open book, and I'm happy to share, advice or just be someone to, lean on, whatever they need.
Yeah, well, thank you, everyone.
If you made it this far, God bless your
Angie,
heart.
for
Thank you
time.
so
And
much
thank
for
you,
spending this
Sophia.
time with me today.
We heard you.
It truly means so much that you're here and part of this little faith-filled community. If this episode spoke to your heart, I'd love for you to follow along with us on social media, where we share encouragement, prayer reflections, and updates. And if you're longing for a space to grow in faith alongside other women, I'd like to personally invite you to our private Facebook group, a peaceful community where we can pray, share, and walk this journey of faith together. You can anonymously ask for prayer intentions, and we're there for us to pray. Before we end, I also do want to share something that I've been really excited about that in the past few weeks I've been sharing. I recently launched a 7-day devotional ebook for women called Grace in the Hidden Life. It's a week of discernment for the heart of a mama. This devotional is for every woman, for the one discerning her vocation, for the pregnant mama preparing her heart, or for the mom already living out her calling, or even for older mamas that have been used their time to mentor other and guide younger mamas that we truly need your wisdom. And so much grace is needed in every season of our lives. This devotional was created to gently guide you through a week of discernment, surrender, and trust, one prayer at a time. Each day includes reflections and space for journaling, helping you rest and listen more closely to His voice. You can find a link to get your copy in the description below, and I truly hope it blesses you as much as it has blessed me. If this podcast has been touching your heart, I'd love to ask you a small favor that truly makes a big difference. If you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify, please take a moment to rate the show 5 stars. It helps more women find us. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And finally, if you feel moved to support our mission in a very special way, please visit our support page. And every bit of support that you do, it really helps us. Thank you so much again. I am really grateful for this, for you listening and praying. Please pray for us as we're growing together in this journey of faith and motherhood. And I want to end, as always, saying, she loves, she serves, she's mama.